Ladies and gentlemen, you ever felt like the world's moving, people are talking, and everyone's got their own thing going on, but you're still standing there alone? The noise is loud, but deep down, you're searching for something deeper. And in that moment, when you feel like you're the only one in the room, do you know what you're really holding? It's power. It's strength. The power of being alone. Tonight, I'm here to tell you something that might challenge everything you've been told. Being alone is not a weakness. It's not something to be feared. No, it's a power, one that you must learn to harness. And when you do, nothing, and I mean nothing, will ever be able to stop you. You know, it's easy to believe that success is all about who you know. Everyone tells you that you need to be surrounded by the right people, that you need a team, a network, a community to help you get where you want to go. But what if I told you that there's power in being by yourself? What if I told you that the greatest breakthroughs, the most transformative ideas, and the most inspiring legacies have often come from moments of solitude? It's true. Solitude is where we find clarity, where we confront our true selves, and where we discover the strength to push through the noise and make things happen. Now, I know some of you might be sitting there thinking, that sounds nice, but I don't have time for that. I need people, I need support. And I get it. We live in a world that's always moving, always pulling us in a million directions. People are constantly talking, constantly telling us what we need to do, who we need to be, and how we need to get there. But here's the thing. When you're surrounded by all that noise, how do you ever find your own voice? How do you ever hear the quiet whisper of your purpose? The truth is, you don't. I want you to think about the moments in your life when you've had to make the toughest decisions, when you've had to dig deep and pull out that courage you didn't even know you had. When the world wasn't looking, when it was just you and your thoughts. That's when you found your true strength. That's when you found your resilience. It wasn't because someone else told you what to do, but because you were alone. You were forced to face yourself, and in that space, you had no choice but to figure out who you truly are and what you stand for. Let's look at some of the greatest minds in history. People like Steve Jobs. I mean, we all know the name, right? Apple, technology, innovation. But you know, behind all of that was a man who spent a lot of time alone. He wasn't always surrounded by a crowd of yes men, and he didn't wait for the world to tell him what to do. No, Steve Jobs spent countless hours walking alone, thinking, reflecting, asking himself tough questions. He didn't need a room full of people to tell him what he was capable of. He went inward, and that's where he found the clarity to build a vision that changed the world. Or look at Maya Angelou. That name, too, is one we all recognize. She gave us poetry that touches the soul, that speaks to the very essence of who we are as human beings. But what most people don't realize is how much of her success was shaped in moments of solitude. Maya Angelou wasn't just writing for the sake of writing. She was reflecting, she was thinking, she was alone with her thoughts, her experiences, and her purpose. She took the time to understand herself before she could give the world her gift. These are just two examples, but there are countless others who found their greatest strength not in a room full of people, but in the quiet space where they could listen to themselves. You see, the world is loud and it's easy to get caught up in the noise. But when you embrace solitude, when you make the choice to step away from the distractions and be with yourself, that's when you find the true power that lies within you. It's not about being alone for the sake of being alone. It's about understanding that you need that time to grow, to reflect, and to be in tune with your inner self. I'm sure some of you are wondering how this all works. How do you find this power? How do you embrace solitude when the world is telling you that you need to be connected? The answer isn't easy, but it's simple. You've got to make the time. You've got to take a step back and create the space for yourself. Whether it's a few minutes in the morning, a walk in the evening, or even a weekend retreat, you have to commit to giving yourself that quiet time. It's in that time that you'll find your purpose. It's in those moments of reflection that you'll hear your own voice, not the voices of others, but your own. You'll start to hear what truly matters to you, what you want to contribute to the world, what legacy you want to leave behind. And when you do that, you're not just walking through life hoping things work out. You're walking with purpose, with intention, and with the knowledge that the power you've been searching for has always been within you. All you had to do was find the space to hear it. Now, I'm not saying that people are important. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a support system or a community that lifts you up. But what I am saying is that before you can truly connect with others, you have to first connect with yourself. Before you can build something meaningful with others, you have to build something meaningful within yourself. So the next time you feel the pressure to constantly be around people, to always be connected, take a moment to step back. Take a deep breath. Find your solitude. Trust that in that quiet space, you will discover something powerful. And when you do, you'll understand that some of the greatest success stories aren't built in the noise of the world, but in the quiet moments where we confront ourselves and find the courage to move forward. Success doesn't always look like what we've been taught. It doesn't always come with a crowd cheering you on. Sometimes success comes when you're all alone, when it's just you and your thoughts, and you choose to step forward anyway. That's where true strength is born. That's where you find your purpose. And when you do, nothing can stand in your way. We live in a world that's constantly pushing and pulling at us. Everywhere you turn, someone's asking for your time, your attention, your energy. It's almost as if the noise is designed to keep you from hearing yourself. You've got your phone buzzing, people talking, notifications popping up every second. The distractions never end. And so you keep moving, keep running, keep reacting, never really stopping to ask yourself, is this the path I want to be on? But here's the thing. When you make time for solitude, all of that fades away. All the noise, all the demands, all the outside influences, they're gone. You're left with nothing but yourself. And that, my friends, is when clarity starts to emerge. That's when you finally get to hear your own thoughts, your own dreams, your own voice. In the stillness, you connect with something deeper than all the distractions combined. In solitude, you start to hear the things that matter. You start to hear what's been inside you all along, waiting for you to listen. Think about the times in your life when you've made a decision because someone else told you it was the right thing to do. Maybe it was a family member, a friend, or even a colleague. They told you what you needed to hear, what you should do, what was expected of you, and in that moment you went along with it. But when you look back, you realize that decision didn't really align with who you are. It didn't feel right, it didn't fit. And deep down you knew that, but you weren't in a place to hear that voice. The noise of the world drowned it out. But in solitude, you get the space to hear your own voice clearly. You get the chance to sift through the noise, the advice, the pressures, and decide what's truly right for you. Solitude breeds clarity because it forces you to focus. In those quiet moments, when the world is silent and still, you can hear your thoughts clearly. The distractions are gone. You're not listening to everyone else's expectations anymore. You're not listening to the opinions of the people around you. You're listening to your own heart. And that's a powerful thing, because when you know who you are, when you know what you stand for, when you know what drives you, there's no confusion, there's no hesitation. You act with purpose. You move forward with confidence, knowing that every step you take is aligned with your true self. How many times have you found yourself stuck, paralyzed, unsure of the next step? You keep waiting for someone to tell you what to do, waiting for validation, approval, or reassurance. But that's not how clarity works. It comes when you've spent enough time in solitude, enough time in reflection, enough time with just yourself, that you begin to understand your own mind. You understand your strengths, your weaknesses, your desires, your fears. You see the truth of who you are, and that truth becomes your guide. When you're able to embrace that solitude, to sit with yourself in silence, you remove all the confusion. You stop second-guessing yourself, because now you're acting from a place of certainty. You're not waiting for someone to tell you what you should be doing, because you know what you want, you know where you're headed, and the strength that comes from that clarity is unshakable. Think about it. The greatest leaders, the greatest minds, the greatest creators, they didn't get there by listening to the noise. They didn't get there by following the crowd or chasing approval. They got there by taking time to be alone, to hear their own thoughts, and to trust what they were hearing. Steve Jobs didn't create Apple by constantly checking in with what everyone else was doing. Maya Angelou didn't write those powerful words by always listening to the opinions of others. They spent time alone with their thoughts, with their purpose, and from that solitude came the clarity they needed to create something extraordinary. Clarity isn't just about making decisions. It's about having the courage to trust yourself, to move forward with conviction, knowing that the path you're on is the right one for you. And when you've been in solitude long enough to really connect with who you are, that clarity becomes like a compass. It guides you through the tough moments, through the uncertainty, through the doubts. You don't have to keep searching for answers from the outside. You have everything you need inside you. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you took a moment to truly listen to yourself? When was the last time you sat quietly, without the distractions, without the interruptions, and just let your thoughts come? It's easy to get caught up in the rush of life, in the constant demands of others. But those moments of solitude, those are the moments that allow you to connect with your own heart and mind. And when you do that, when you really listen, you'll be amazed at the clarity that shows up. The truth is, most of us are too busy running around trying to meet everyone else's expectations. We're so focused on what the world wants from us that we forget to ask ourselves what we truly want. But when you make time for solitude, when you give yourself the space to think, to reflect, and to grow, you unlock the ability to make decisions that are true to who you are. You stop living for everyone else, and you start living for yourself. And that's when the real power starts to emerge. So I challenge you to find that space. Take a break from the noise. Take a moment to sit with yourself, to hear your thoughts, and to embrace the clarity that comes with solitude. Because when you do, when you connect with your true self, there's nothing that can hold you back. You'll know exactly who you are, exactly what you stand for, and you'll move forward with a confidence and a purpose that will carry you through anything life throws your way. Let's take a moment to get real with each other. Life isn't easy. You've been through your struggles. I know you've had days where it felt like the world was against you, where the odds seemed stacked up so high that you didn't know how you'd climb them. And guess what? You're going to face more challenges, more setbacks, more hard days are coming. That's just the truth. Life doesn't always play fair. It's not always kind, and sometimes it feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. But here's where the power of solitude comes in. You see, being alone doesn't just give you clarity. It doesn't just allow you to hear your own thoughts. It also builds something deeper inside of you. It builds resilience. It builds strength. It builds the kind of endurance that can carry you through the toughest battles. When you learn to face life's challenges on your own, when you sit with yourself in those tough moments, you develop a sense of power that no one can take away from you. Let me tell you something about resilience. It's not something that comes easy. It's something that's earned, something that's forged in the hardest moments of life. It's in those times when you feel like you're alone, when you're stuck, when you're facing down your own fears and doubts. It's in those moments that you find out what you're really made of. Resilience isn't built in the easy times. It's not built when everything is going right. No, resilience is built when everything is going wrong. It's built when you're knocked down, but you keep getting back up. It's built when you're alone with your pain, your struggles, and your doubts, and you decide that you're not going to let them define you. I want you to think about someone like Nelson Mandela. Here's a man who spent 27 years in prison, isolated from the world. He was cut off from his family, from his friends, from everything he loved. And when you think about that kind of isolation, it would break most people. Most people would crumble under that kind of pressure. But not Mandela. He didn't break. He didn't lose himself in that time. Instead, he used it. He didn't let that solitude destroy him. He let it shape him. He used those long years to build an inner strength, an unshakable resilience. He came out of that prison stronger, more focused, more determined, to change the world. He was ready to lead a revolution. Now, you might be thinking, I'm not facing 27 years in prison, so what does that have to do with me? Well, the point is this. It doesn't matter how big or small your struggle is. What matters is how you respond to it. You've been through your own trials. Maybe you've lost someone you loved. Maybe you've been through a health battle or a financial struggle. Maybe you've been in a place where it felt like the whole world was against you. But how did you respond? Did you let it break you, or did you let it build you? Because here's what I want you to understand. Solitude builds resilience in a way that nothing else can. When you're alone, you have no choice but to confront yourself. You can't hide from your fears. You can't distract yourself with the noise of the world. You've got to face what's inside of you. And when you do that, when you sit with your pain, your doubt, your fear, and still decide to move forward, that's when you build resilience. You see, it's not about avoiding the pain. It's about learning how to move through it. It's about finding the strength inside you to keep going when everything around you is telling you to stop. When you face your struggles alone, you learn something powerful about yourself. You learn that you are stronger than you think. You learn that you can survive the storms, that you can keep going even when it feels like the road is never going to end. You realize that the strength you need was never outside of you. It was always inside. And the more you face those struggles, the more you embrace solitude, the more you strengthen that muscle. You become more resilient, more determined, more capable of handling whatever comes your way. There will be days when you want to quit. There will be days when you feel like you just can't take one more step. But if you've spent time in solitude, if you've learned to build your resilience in the quiet moments, then you'll have the strength to keep moving. You'll have the strength to face whatever life throws at you, because you'll know that nothing can break you. You've been through too much to be broken. You've built yourself up one step at a time, one challenge at a time, and you've become unshakable. I need you to remember something. The next time life knocks you down, don't run from the pain. Don't run from the solitude. Instead, embrace it. Use it. Because that's when you're going to find the strength you didn't know you had. That's when you're going to tap into that resilience that's been waiting inside you all along. Life is tough, no doubt about it. But when you learn to face it alone, when you learn to stand up and keep going no matter what, you'll become unstoppable. The next time the world tries to knock you down, you won't flinch. You won't break. You'll rise up stronger than ever. Because that's the power of solitude. It doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you unbreakable. You ever notice how easy it is to get caught up in the world around you? It's like everyone's moving in the same direction, everyone's thinking the same thoughts, chasing the same goals. You get caught up in the trends, the expectations, the noise. It's hard to hear your own voice when you're surrounded by everyone else's. You start following the crowd without even realizing it, without even questioning whether this is the path you really want to be on. But let me tell you something. If you want to break free from that, if you want to tap into something deeper, something truly unique, then you've got to step away. You've got to embrace solitude. Because it's in those moments of being alone that you allow your mind to breathe, to wander, to explore. When you're alone, there's no one to tell you what you should be thinking, what you should be doing. You've got the space to get outside of the patterns, outside of the noise, and into the realm of pure creativity. The truth is, creativity doesn't thrive when we're always surrounded by others. It doesn't flourish when we're constantly plugged in, constantly reacting to the world around us. Creativity needs room to stretch, to breathe, to think without limits. And when you're surrounded by the same voices and the same opinions, it's easy to fall into a pattern, a rut. You stop thinking for yourself. You start thinking like everyone else. But when you give yourself the space of solitude, something amazing happens. You start to break free from those patterns. Your mind opens up. You start thinking in ways you wouldn't have before, considering possibilities that never even crossed your mind. You begin to tap into ideas that only you could create. And those ideas, they'll be different, they'll be bold, they'll be unique. Because in the silence of solitude, you're not just hearing the same things everyone else is. You're listening to something deeper. You're listening to your own creative spirit, and it's powerful. Think about the great minds who've shaped our world. People like Albert Einstein. Here's a man who changed the way we understand the universe. You want to know where his most famous theory, the theory of relativity, came from? It didn't come from a crowded classroom or from a team of researchers. It came from a moment of solitude. Einstein imagined himself alone, riding on a beam of light. And in that quiet, solitary space, his mind opened up to a revolutionary new way of thinking. He wasn't confined by what everyone else thought was possible. He wasn't limited by the boundaries of what the world expected from him. He stepped away from the crowd, embraced solitude, and in that stillness, he changed the world. And think about Beethoven, one of the greatest composers to ever live. This man didn't sit in a room full of people to compose some of his greatest symphonies. He didn't create his masterpieces in a crowd of admirers. No, Beethoven spent countless hours alone, in solitude, allowing his mind to create music that would transcend generations. He wasn't worried about what was trending or what was popular. He was creating from a place of pure, uninterrupted focus. And it's because of that solitude that we still listen to his music today. His creativity was sparked not by the voices around him, but by the space he created for himself to think, to feel, and to imagine beyond the ordinary. Now, I know you might be thinking, that's great for them, but what about me? I'm not a genius like Einstein or Beethoven, and that's exactly the point. The beauty of solitude is that it's for all of us. It's not reserved for the so-called greats. It's for anyone willing to step away from the noise, to create the space to listen to their own thoughts and to let their imagination run wild. You don't need a PhD or a grand stage to create something extraordinary. All you need is a moment of quiet, a willingness to step outside of the patterns and expectations, and a commitment to letting your mind explore. Solitude allows you to hear the whispers of your creativity. It gives you the chance to see what's possible when you stop following the crowd and start listening to your own voice. It gives you the freedom to explore new ideas, to take risks, and to go down paths that others might never think to take. And the best part, you don't have to do it alone forever. Solitude isn't about shutting everyone else out for good. It's about creating the space you need to think, to create, and to discover what's inside of you. Once you've found that spark, once you've embraced your own creativity, then you can share it with the world. But it all starts with giving yourself that time alone. So think about your own life. How much time are you really giving yourself to be alone with your thoughts? How often do you step away from the noise to just sit, breathe, and let your mind wander? You might be surprised at what happens when you do. You might be surprised at what ideas, what creations, what innovations come to life when you stop trying to follow the crowd and start listening to yourself. The next time you feel stuck, the next time you're facing a challenge and you don't know where to turn, try stepping away. Try giving yourself a little solitude. You might find that the answers you've been searching for are waiting for you in that quiet space. And when those ideas start to come, when that creativity starts to flow, you'll understand that solitude isn't just a retreat. It's the birthplace of the most powerful ideas in the world. Ideas that only you can create. Ideas that can change everything. Life has a way of pulling us in a million directions. People constantly telling us who we should be, what we should do, how we should think, and what we should feel. There's always someone out there with an opinion about your life, about your choices. And sometimes it's easy to fall into that trap. It's easy to lose yourself in the expectations of others. But one of the most powerful things you can do in your life is to really get to know who you are. Who you are, not because of what others have told you, not because of what the world expects from you, but because of what you know deep down inside. The real you. The version of yourself that only emerges when everything else is stripped away. And that, my friends, is what solitude does for you. It forces you to sit with yourself, face to face, with no distractions, and no one else around to tell you who you should be. It's just you. And that's when the real magic happens. See, when you're always surrounded by people, when you're constantly caught up in the noise of the world, it's easy to lose track of who you really are. It's easy to start becoming what everyone else wants you to be, to start living up to expectations that aren't even your own. But when you choose solitude, you choose to stop running. You stop hiding from yourself. You sit with your thoughts and your feelings, your dreams and your fears. And let me tell you something, when you do that, you start to discover things about yourself that you never knew existed. You start to see your strengths, your weaknesses, and the things that have been holding you back. Now, I'm not going to tell you that this process is easy. It's not. Solitude forces you to confront yourself, your fears, your insecurities, your flaws, and that can be uncomfortable. At first, you might be afraid of being alone with your thoughts. You might feel like you're going to lose your mind, like you can't handle the silence. But here's the thing, when you face those fears, when you sit in that discomfort, something incredible starts to happen. You start to grow. You start to evolve into someone more self-aware, more confident in who you are, more comfortable in your own skin. You realize that all the things you were afraid of, your weaknesses, your flaws, your vulnerabilities, are not the things that define you. They're just parts of you. And they don't make you any less worthy. In fact, they make you stronger. Because when you can face your own truth, when you can sit with your own demons and still move forward, you become unstoppable. And here's the real power of solitude. It's where you discover just how much you're capable of. You might not know it right now, but you've got greatness inside of you. We all do. We're all capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. But that greatness, that potential, can only come out when you make time to listen to yourself, to reflect on your life, to evaluate who you are and where you're going. When you strip away all the noise, all the distractions, all the influences of other people, you finally have the space to understand your true potential. And that's when you start realizing that you don't need anyone else to define your worth. You don't need anyone else to tell you who you are or what you're capable of. You've got everything you need right there inside you. Let's be honest for a second. How many times have you made decisions based on what someone else wanted for you? How many times have you lived your life based on the approval or validation of others? We all do it. It's human nature. But the problem is, when you're always looking to others to define you, when you're always chasing their approval, you lose sight of who you really are. You forget what you really want, what you really need. And that's dangerous. Because you were born with a unique purpose, a unique gift. And if you don't take the time to listen to yourself, you'll miss it. That's why solitude is so important. It's not about being alone for the sake of it. It's about giving yourself the space to really get to know yourself, to connect with the deepest parts of who you are. And when you do that, you realize that you don't need anyone else's approval. You don't need anyone else's validation. You are enough just as you are. You are worthy just as you are. And once you understand that, once you truly believe that, you can walk through life with your head held high, knowing that you're not defined by who's around you, by what people think of you. You're defined by who you are when no one's watching, when it's just you, stripped of all the labels and expectations. When you sit with yourself, when you embrace that solitude, you discover your own worth, your own purpose. You realize that you don't have to be anyone else. You don't have to chase anyone else's dream. Your dreams are yours and you are capable of making them come true. But first, you've got to sit with yourself and face the truth. You've got to be willing to go into those uncomfortable places, to look at the parts of you that you've been avoiding, to confront the fears that have been holding you back. Because when you do that, when you face yourself head on, you unlock a power within you that's been there all along. So I'm asking you to take that time, find that solitude. It's not about being alone for the sake of it. It's about creating the space to truly discover who you are. Because when you do that, when you really get to know yourself, you'll realize that you're capable of more than you ever imagined. You'll see that everything you need to succeed is already inside you. You just have to be brave enough to face it, to embrace it, and to step into your power. There's a tough truth that no one wants to talk about, but it's time we face it. The people you depend on can let you down. Your friends, your family, your coworkers, they're all human, and like you and me, they're gonna fall short sometimes. The ones you think will always have your back may not always be there when you need them most. And when that happens, you find yourself at a crossroads. You feel abandoned, lost, uncertain about what comes next. But here's the thing I need you to understand. That's not the end of your story. Because when you learn the power of being alone, when you learn to stand on your own 2 feet, you realize something incredible. You are the source of your own strength. You don't need anyone else to lift you up, because you've got the strength inside of you to get yourself up. You don't need someone else to carry you through life's storms, because you've learned how to face the rain on your own. You are the one who finds the courage to keep moving forward, even when the world feels like it's trying to break you. You are your own support system. And once you truly understand that, once you realize that your strength doesn't come from anyone else, nothing in this world can take it away from you. Not failure, not rejection, not pain, nothing. See, there's something transformative that happens when you embrace solitude. It's in those quiet moments when no one else is around that you start to discover the power that's been inside you all along. You see, we all face hardships. We all go through trials. Life will knock you down over and over again. And when it does, it will test you. It will test your character. It will test your resolve. And when you're surrounded by people, it's easy to believe that your strength comes from the support of others, from the encouragement of the people around you. And that's not wrong. People can be a blessing. They can lift you up when you need it. But let me tell you this, the real test, the real strength comes when you're alone, when there's no one else to lean on. That's when you truly find out what you're made of. I want you to think about the kind of person who's been through hardship. Think about someone you know or someone you've heard about who's been knocked down by life but somehow still stands tall. I'm talking about that person who, no matter how many times they get knocked down, gets right back up. The kind of person who's been through the storm and still walks forward. That's the power of solitude. That's the power of knowing that your strength doesn't come from the applause, from the cheers, from the people around you. It comes from within. It comes from the ability to face the hardest challenges, the darkest moments, and say, I'm still here. I'm not giving up. I'm not backing down. Now, I know it's not easy. It's hard to face those tough moments alone. It's hard to look in the mirror when no one else is around and confront the truth about yourself. But that's when the real transformation happens. You see, when you're forced to rely on yourself, when you don't have anyone else to turn to, you find out what you're really made of. And sometimes that means facing your fears. It means confronting the parts of yourself that you'd rather avoid. It means looking at the things you're running from, the things that scare you, and saying, I can handle this. I can get through this. I am strong enough. You ever notice that when you're going through a tough time, it's easy to feel like the world is against you? It's easy to get discouraged, to feel like you're fighting an uphill battle with no one on your side. But that's when you have to dig deep. That's when you have to remember that the strength you need isn't something external. It's not in the people around you, and it's not in the things you have. It's inside you. It's in your ability to keep going, even when you don't feel like it. It's in your refusal to quit, to give up, to let life break you. It's in that fire inside you, the one that says, I'm not done yet. I'm still standing. And I'm going to make it through this. That's what solitude teaches you. It teaches you that when everything else falls away, when you're stripped down to your core, you are enough. You have everything you need inside you to face life head on. You may feel scared. You may feel uncertain. But you have the strength to overcome. You've got the courage to stand tall. You've got the resilience to keep moving forward, even when the road gets tough. I want you to understand this: no one can take your strength from you. No matter what you go through, no matter what life throws your way, no one can take away the power that's inside you. And that power, it comes from your ability to stand alone. It comes from your willingness to look at the challenges in front of you and say, I got this. I'm going to make it through. When you learn to rely on yourself, when you learn that you are the source of your own strength, nothing can stop you. Not fear, not doubt, not anything. The truth is, we all have moments where we feel weak. We all have times where we feel like we can't go on. But I want you to remember this: that's when you find out what you're really made of. That's when you tap into the strength that's been inside you all along. And the more you face those moments, the more you embrace solitude, the stronger you become. You start to realize that you don't need anyone else to complete you. You're already whole. You're already powerful. You're already everything you need to be. So the next time you face a challenge, the next time you feel like you're standing alone, don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. Embrace the solitude. Embrace the strength that's within you. Because once you do, once you realize that you are your own source of power, nothing will ever be able to hold you back again. You'll stand tall. You'll walk with confidence, and you'll know that no matter what happens, you've got the strength to face it all on your own. Let me leave you with this thought. Don't fear being alone. Don't run from it. I know it can be uncomfortable, but trust me, there's power in that silence. Embrace it. Let it be the space where you find yourself, where you discover parts of you that you've been ignoring, where you let your mind breathe and grow. Solitude is not a punishment. It's not something to be feared. It's a gift. And the moment you begin to see it for what it truly is, that's when the transformation begins. We're constantly told that we need people, that we need someone else to tell us who we are, to show us our value. But here's the thing: you were born with everything you need inside you. You don't need someone else's approval to move forward. You don't need someone else's validation to make a decision. Solitude shows you that. It helps you tap into that inner power, the strength that's been there all along, waiting for you to realize it. When you're alone, when there's no one else around to distract you, you find the courage to face your truth. You find the clarity to make decisions that are true to you, not to the expectations of the world. Don't wait for someone else to define you. Don't wait for someone else to tell you what you're capable of. When you stand in solitude, you begin to realize that the only person who can define you, who can truly tell you what you're capable of, is you. You have the strength, the resilience, and the creativity to shape your own future. But you have to be willing to face the silence, to face yourself, and to let it shape you into who you were always meant to be. When you embrace solitude, you don't just learn about your strengths, you also learn about your weaknesses. You learn to face your fears, to confront the doubts that have been holding you back. And as you do that, you begin to realize something incredible. You are stronger than you think. The world doesn't have to define you. The noise of the world doesn't have to drown out your inner voice. When you step into your own space, when you stop relying on the outside world to tell you what you need, you discover a power within you that can't be shaken. A strength that doesn't rely on anything or anyone else. So the next time you find yourself alone, don't be afraid. Don't fill that space with distractions. Don't let that quiet moment make you feel smaller. Use it. Use it to find your clarity. Use it to build your resilience. Use it to unleash the creativity that you've been keeping locked inside. In that silence, you'll find everything you need to keep moving forward. And when you discover that strength, when you realize that you're the one who controls your destiny, when you realize that no one can take away the power that lies within you, there's nothing that will stop you. When you stand tall in your own presence, when you realize that you are enough, when you understand that you are your own source of strength, nothing will be able to break you. You'll be ready for anything. You'll be ready to take on the challenges, the obstacles, the hardships that life throws your way. You'll be ready to conquer the world because you'll know that the power to do so has been with you all along. And that, my friends, is the power of being alone. It's the power to find the strength you never knew you had, the power to define your own worth, the power to create a life that's truly yours. Embrace it. The world is yours for the taking.